All right, Bernie Sanders with the huge win. The media freaking out all day, wondering why they do not have complete and utter control of the democratic process. The underlying and overlying whatever fact about all of this is about the culinary union. That entire story encapsulates what we're talking about when we say corporate manipulation of democracy, because we saw the culinary union come out against Bernie, against Medicare for all, and all the media was like, oh my goodness, why does Bernie have a problem with unions? Pete Buttigieg, Bernie, the unions don't like your healthcare plan. And in the end, the actual members of the culinary union, even if the heads of the union did not support Medicare for all, the actual members of the culinary union, the actual working class, was with Bernie Sanders all along and pushed him to get even wider of a victory in Nevada. And that's one of the truly amazing things about this entire process. Bernie Sanders giving a great speech.
As a United States Senator, I do understand the power of the corporate elite and the 1%. They have literally unlimited amounts of money. They have significant control over the media, over our economy, and over the political life of this country. But at the end of the day, the 1% is 1%. Now, I don't have a PhD in mathematics, but I do know that 99% is a heck of a lot bigger number than 1%.
I saw Elizabeth Warren's speech from Washington after all of the results came in. She came out and said, "Who's ready for big structural change?" And then she said, "Thank you to my supporters for keeping me in the fight." She said, "Congratulations, Bernie." And then she pivoted straight to Michael Bloomberg. So Elizabeth Warren obviously thinks her path to being relevant and stealing delegates from Bernie is to keep attacking Michael Bloomberg. She didn't bring up any Bernie bro smears or any Bernie health smears at all, but she did dig in to Bloomberg yet again. So I think her team thinks that's her path to be somewhat successful. In Joe Biden's victory speech, I say victory speech because he pretended it was a great victory because he's getting second place. He was leading in the polls for the past 3-4 weeks, the past couple months actually, and there was a big turnaround in the past week in the polling with Bernie Sanders taking the top spot, not by a little but by a lot. So the media story and the story on the ground is that the candidates were competing for second place, and there's an article here that kind of shows that. Watch for who finishes second place in Nevada. A Sanders victory won't be a surprise, so the attention will go to the next best finisher, and that is Joe Biden. He came out with a very P-esque type of victory speech, and I mean, him doing good here doesn't exactly hurt Sanders a lot. There's this weird balance I want to strike with the centrist lane. So I don't want Joe Biden to do too good, and I don't want him to do too bad, and I don't want him to fall out of this completely, because I want him around just enough to take votes away from Bloomberg, to kill that moderate vote and split it up even more. Although, of course, there is a lot of crossover from Biden to Bernie, we do need a buffer from Bloomberg, because we have no way to tell how much manipulation Bloomberg can get through with his media ads. Pete Buttigieg came out and relentlessly pounded Bernie Sanders, saying he is a divider, saying he has revolutionary, unresolving views that he refuses to change. And he came out really snarky, like the rat he is. Although Bernie Sanders actually beat Mayor Pete so far in the numbers from Nevada when it comes to moderate and conservative voters, Pete is trying to say Bernie Sanders is not a uniter. People don't like his ideas, when we know that is completely, false, because everyone wants these ideas, but they're being told these ideas are not realistic. So that's the only reason we do not truly attack them. 60% of people in Nevada, in a state where they spent millions and millions of dollars to attack Medicare for all, 60% of people, just like Iowa, just like New Hampshire, think private insurance is complete malarkey, as Joe Biden would say, and they want it replaced by a government plan, a Medicare for all single player healthcare plan. 60% of voters, with all of the media smears, all of the distortion. And imagine what that number would be if the media didn't do such a hack job on it. Imagine how popular Medicare for all would be. 60% right now. Imagine how high it would be if the media did not completely misrepresent it and all of that. So I guess what all of this shows us, what this big victory for Bernie Sanders shows us, is how much the ground game and organization matters. How much actually getting to people and talking to them matters, because anyone can spend tons of money and get advertisements. By the way, Bloomberg's ads are, oh my god, terrible. Whoever is designing his memes needs to step back and play some, video games and go into Call of Duty lobbies and find out what's actually funny on the internet. But you cannot buy a connection with human beings. And Bernie Sanders' organization, what he's showing right here, is exactly what they need to beat Donald Trump. And that organization is what I think will propel Bernie, if he is the Democratic nominee, which he will be if it isn't stolen from him. That organization is what I think could have him flip Texas. And no one's even considering that yet. But that's my big prediction right now. I think Bernie Sanders' state, the unique state he could swing, could be Texas. But I don't know if many people are really looking at that right now. Here's Susan Sarandon. Pete Buttigieg, these are the attacks he's sending at Bernie Sanders. Basically saying Senator Sanders is ignoring, dismissing, or even attacking the very Democrats we absolutely must send to Capitol Hill in order to keep Nancy Pelosi as Speaker, in order to support judges who respect privacy and democracy, and in order to send Mitch McConnell into retirement. Bold of Pete to assume we want Nancy Pelosi as Speaker still. I know she made the big, bold statement of ripping up Donald Trump's speech, although it's all fake resistance, and she supports the military spending. She supports not really cracking down on corporations. She helps Donald Trump get friggin' Space Force. And, she's not a political mastermind by any means, but this is what Pete is going for. We can either prioritize either ideological purity or inclusive victory. We can either call people names online, or we can call them into our movement. We can either tighten a narrow and hardcore base, or open the tent to a new, broad, big-hearted American coalition. Although the poll came out yesterday with Bernie Sanders being the most favorable candidate by far, even amongst all voters, he was more favorable than Donald Trump. Yeah, Bernie Sanders rocked Texas with 2 rallies earlier. I think that's Bernie's big play that no one's paying attention to. I have said it for a couple weeks, and I think we're starting to see the, on the ground. Donald Trump has this weird Hispanic voter base that the media doesn't understand. And that's the exact base Bernie can grab a hold of. If a majority of voters in your party's primary back a candidate, doesn't that mean they're the most electable? Yeah, of course. We have all the numbers. We have the popular policies. We have the person with the best organization. We have the person that people trust. People like Bernie Sanders. People don't care about the socialist label. Bernie Sanders fights for the working class. He means it when he says it. We have a guy right here who, if we organized around right now, we'd be able to kill it. Like, all this division they're talking about, it's being waged by the people that are preventing progress from happening. The white moderate that Martin Luther King spoke about. Pete is a crybaby. We need that hashtag then. Hashtag Pete is a crybaby. But I really wish he would just shut up. He's so stupid. But I think he's helping because they see how he talks. He's not very genuine. Teachers for Pete, only Bernie bros are mean to people online. Here is Teachers for Pete. I will use my madness to pray that Bernie has another heart attack. Oh my goodness. A Bernie bro, apparently. But, a Pete. What would a Pete Bernie bro be called? I don't even know. A Pete boy? I don't know. The crybabies, the Peter, the baby Pete's, boy beats, Pete's, I don't even know. They can't match the memes, honestly, dude. I'll pay you $1,000 to safely escort me back to some white people. That is absolutely Beautiful meme, well executed. And as far as results are going right now, I don't even know which site is accurate anymore. So here you go, 23% reporting, and these are these delegates, CCDs. So Bernie Sanders at 47% right now with 23% of the vote in. So 47% to Joe Biden, second place at 23%. And the number I'm really looking at right now is the number I'm looking at right now is Elizabeth Warren at that 9% spot. All of these people, when Bernie won Iowa, when Bernie won New Hampshire, they were all saying, oh, we have to wait until the base of the Democratic Party actually gets represented, the Hispanic voters, the black voters. Well, guess what? It worked in Bernie's favor. The only person not saying we have to wait for another base to vote was Bernie's campaign. You don't see much like blacks for Bernie or Hispanics for Bernie. You don't see shirts that say that. You see people for Bernie. And Bernie's not just attacking, certain demographics. He's attacking working class demographics. And that's why the pull is so strong. When you tell people who are disenfranchised, who feel left out, that you're fighting for them, it's a very powerful message. And that's why the media is so scrambled, and they are all wondering why they cannot get a gauge on what voters actually think. Crystal Ball actually shared a funny video. I'm not sure how easy it will be to find. But, oh, this is a good throwback. Before I get to that. Jennifer Rubin, notorious Bernie Sanders hater, conservative, MSNBC Washington Post columnist from March 18th, 2019. So a spicy 11 months ago. Beto fundraising numbers suggest Bernie, now officially yesterday's news, faces stiff competition for youth vote. I guess Beto's skateboarding didn't exactly knock Bernie Sanders off, because Bernie Sanders has a mean jump shot, obviously. Turnout in Nevada has been absolutely crazy. Actually, early voting this year, I think it was around like 70,000 early votes. It almost beat the number of total voters, the total turnout from 2016, I'm pretty sure. So that was just early voting. And they're saying right here, this Jennifer lady, turnout could break the 2008 record. The Nevada's Independent, John Ralston, says, how many new voters and how many new Latino voters? So Bernie Sanders' case to be elected, that they accused him of failing on in Iowa and New Hampshire, is coming true. Bernie coming out and getting people out to vote, raising turnout, the way we beat Donald Trump. Donald Trump has a great economy right now. If you look at economic indicators that typically pick if a president is going to win or not, Donald Trump has all of them logged in. So every single economic indicator says Donald Trump will get reelected, historically. So when the economy is perceived to be good by most of the white privileged working class, you need to pull upon every single person in this country that's feeling any part of the struggle, of the bottom of the barrel, the terrible economic conditions, working 50 hours, 60 hours a week. We have to get those people out to vote, because a lot of people will say, okay, well, I have a job right now. That's okay. My taxes sort of went down a couple dollars, although they probably didn't. They think the dollars went down, so why not re-elect Trump? Versus Joe Biden, who just says, I'll bring back Obama or whatever. So we have to push turnout when you have good economic numbers, because other than that, what's your case? If you're just going to say, like, I'm not going to change anything for people, and Donald Trump says the economy got better, it's not a fight you're going to win. But if you do say there's 68,000 people a year we could save if we move to a Medicare for all system, that's a fight you can win. You have to pull upon struggle in every single case. You feel me? Yes, thank you, Nevada, for feeling the burn. The race is now between Bernie and the 50%, seeing if Bernie can get across the finish line before they pull this out from underneath him. That is what we're looking for right now. Bernie Sanders spent a lot in Spanish language advertising, and that should help in California and Texas, which are the two states Bernie needs to absolutely dominate. Like right now, all indicators are saying that Mike Bloomberg is going to win Florida by around 5 to 10 points, even after that terrible debate performance, because it's Florida, so they're crazy. Sorry if anyone's from Florida, but but Bernie has to be able to knock out Texas and California with California, definitely he needs to get 28 or higher, 28% or higher. If the field is how it is right now, with the people in it as they are in Texas, he has to win by at least 5 to 10 points. So yeah, it is a race between these two groups. Does anyone have any opinions on the tweet that Bernie posted? I know what people are going to say, but the tweet Bernie put up that the media freaked out about, where he said the Democratic establishment and the Republican establishment are against him. They're trying to stop him, but they won't be able to. And apparently this was big news to the media, because if you attack the Democratic and Republican establishment, apparently you're attacking the people of the party, which we know is not true. And that this was a little bit ago. Yeah, and someone replied to it with a really stupid point, saying that the establishments... Yeah, here's the tweet. So they were saying that the establishments did a lot for us. The establishments gave us the civil rights movement. They gave us the right to vote. They gave us social security. The establishment gave us all these things just because they wanted to help us, when in reality, really the only time we get good things from the establishment is when they feel they have to prevent us from getting pissed off. That's the role of the ruling class. That's the role of the government. And you could kind of argue with me on that point, but I think the role of the oligarchy, of the kleptocracy, is to keep us just content enough so that we don't get pissed off and rise up. And if you're going to say the Republican establishment and Democratic establishment gave us those things, you are completely wrong. Think about what it took for the civil rights movement to get passed, or for any voting rights act to get passed. So many lives gone, both black and whites that went down to help the movement. Think about the long lineage of history that it took to get to the point. And you're going to say the Democratic establishment gave us that? They were forced to. They were forced to give us stuff when we take over. That's the only time change ever happens. Nothing ever happens incrementally except getting content and being told we can't get more. Being in the richest and most powerful country, while simultaneously being told that we can't have things that smaller and weaker countries and more poor countries have. Like, affordable college, health care, housing. We're super rich, we're super powerful, but I guess we can't provide for our own people. You should put funny media meltdown clips. Oh my goodness, Chris Matthews. I'm sure if I even type in Chris Matthews to the search bar, he'll come up. Oh my goodness, he compared Bernie to the Germans in 1904. Oh yeah, he said, okay, sorry.
Out of left field.
I'm wondering whether the Democratic moderates want Bernie Sanders to be president. I mean, that's maybe too exciting a question to raise. They don't like Trump at all. Do they want Bernie Sanders to take over the Democratic Party in perpetuity? Well, I mean, he takes it over. He sets the direction for the future of the party. Maybe they'd rather wait 4 years and put in a Democrat that they like.
So Chris Matthews suggesting the Democratic establishment is better off with 4 more years of Trump than Sanders' movement reshaping the party. And yes, that is completely true. Donald Trump keeps donations coming in. It keeps fake resistance alive. Bernie Sanders, in an executive position, effectively gives the people control over one branch of government. Control over a branch of government that we haven't had in 60 years. And they don't want that. They don't want us to have control. They don't want us to have workers on the corporate boards of companies. And Chris Matthews, oh my goodness, like MSNBC went off the deep end. Once they realized they could not control the voters, it's like a parent that realized they can't control their kid, so they just freak out on their kid. And where's the one with Chris Matthews? Oh, this is a good one. Nita Turner, she always kills everyone.
The oligarch. You call him the oligarch. I think everybody on that side is doing it now.
Yeah.
What can he do now? He's got to climb out of the hole next debate next week. He's got to deal with the NDA thing and all that somehow again.
I think he was on the wrong stage, Chris, the other night.
Where should he have been?
On the Republican stage. That's where he belongs.
Yes.
And if he was truly wanted to defeat President Trump, he wouldn't be frolicking on the Democratic side. He would be true to who he really is.
Yeah, honestly though, if you look at Bloomberg's policies, like pre-pivot to the liberal side, it was all complete Donald Trump, other than gun control and climate change. Other than gun control and climate change, Michael Bloomberg might be more authoritarian, than Donald Trump. Like, I remember when Donald Trump was running and he proposed to implement stop and frisk throughout the entire country. Remember that? Do you remember that, guys? So everyone freaked out, like, oh my God, it's such a terrible policy. This evil dictator, Michael Bloomberg, Mr. Billionaire Boy Sugar Daddy, comes up and he's like, hey guys, I'll fund your party if you forget about this stop and frisk. And we're like, oh, okay, well, he's on our side, so it's okay now. Like, it's such a slap in the face to everything we have fought for. It really is. His fluffiness, thank you for subscribing. I seem really chill. You know, that's pretty good. Yeah, Chris Matthews compared tonight to the Nazis storming France. I was trying to find that.
Frustrating for media. This is going to be very frustrating for pundits, very frustrating for media consultants and everyone who's trying to figure this out logically. Bernie Sanders is walking away with it. He's doing it now. He's probably going to win his third contest today, big time. As John Ralston, maybe 2-1. There's questions about whether the other candidates will even get on the scoreboard by passing the threshold of 15. And what seems to be going on is Bernie and Buttigieg did well in the first two contests. They'll do well again today. But the voters are not playing the game any better than the candidates are. Everybody knows the issue now is going to be Bernie versus some alternative. Not necessarily a moderate. It could be Elizabeth Warren. But there has to be some alternative or we're not going to have a real contest here. Bernie's going to walk away with it. The whole thing, all the way to Milwaukee. This is going to be very frustrating.
We're trying to figure this out logically because we don't understand human beings up here in the clouds where we make $10 million per episode of our crazy rants pretending we know stuff about politics. They don't understand voters. And he actually brings up a point that I'm trying to push forwards, that Elizabeth Warren is the number one threat to Bernie Sanders securing the nomination, just because she versus him in head-to-head matchups, she's the closest to Bernie Sanders. If you take every other candidate out and just have 1v1s, she does the best. Bernie only beats her by 2 points, and there's a lot of middle room in between there. So I don't like her being in this. I don't like how she is still trying to, take this Bernie Sanders lane that she has pretended to be a part of over the past year, because it's really hurting him now. It's going to really show if she stays in for Super Tuesday.
Like a huge night for Senator Sanders. 3 in a row,
Yes.
3 popular vote victories in a row. Heading into next week, Super Tuesday, you couldn't be better primed.
Not at all, and it's called intentional organizing. We were in this state much earlier than any other candidate, on the ground, really talking to the people and working really hard to earn the vote. And what the early returns so far are showing that.
All right, I turned my mic up a little bit. If the mic's not loud enough, I don't have my usual equipment, so I'm kind of just doing what I can here with my usual microphone that I use for rapping. So here's Chris Matthews comparing Bernie Sanders' success to the Nazis defeating France. I'm sure you all saw this one.
About the fall of France in the summer of 1940, and the General Renault calls up Churchill and says, "It's over." And Churchill said, "How can it be? You got the greatest army in Europe. How can it be over?" He said, "It's over." So I had that suppressed feeling. I can't be as wild as Carville, but he is damn smart, and I think he's damn right on this one.
Carville sounds like a bumbling fool coming on and crying about communism. It's incoherent babble, blabber, blabble, whatever. It's a bunch of BS. And Chris Matthews, if Bernie Sanders becomes the nominee, he might actually have a stroke. He might actually. Look at this guy. He looks like a poor puppy. No, Warren will not be VP. There's no way. She already severed her ties. The only way Warren could be VP is if she went through this entire thing, through Super Tuesday, through everything, and got delegates to the point where Bernie would need delegates, or whoever would need delegates, and she gives it to them, and that's how she becomes a VP. Because now with all the candidates staying in this, they're all getting bargaining power with each delegate they pick up, because when they pick up a delegate, they take that with them to the convention, and they ultimately decide where that power goes. So that's why a lot of people are staying in right now, that you might wonder, why are they staying in? Klobuchar, for example, she might want to get 40 delegates if she can, so that she could go into the convention with some bargaining power to get a position in a administration or for something else. So, I mean, I don't know if Tom Steyer is going to be the reason that someone flips, but one of these people at the bottom might have some bargaining power at the end. Tom Steyer doing bad here is actually really good for Bernie because Tom Steyer poured a lot of money into South Carolina to get the more progressive young black vote focused on climate change. So Tom Steyer doing good here. He actually has a lot of crossover with Bernie because he came out as the billionaire progressive. So Tom Steyer doing bad might tell some Steyer voters, okay, he's not viable. Vote for the guy who cares about the climate. Cares about the climate and actually has a chance to win. And when people start winning, other people start jumping on the bandwagon. And once other people start jumping on the bandwagon, it's hard to slow it down. And Bernie Sanders is winning a lot of areas that he actually lost against Hillary Clinton in Nevada.
I'm picturing Michael Bloomberg with kind of a club with spikes going medieval on Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I know.
I'm
Excuse me?
picturing Michael Bloomberg with kind of a club with spikes going medieval on Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, Bernie bros are violent. Imagine if a Bernie Sanders supporter said that. What is she? Okay.
I'm picturing Michael Bloomberg with kind of a club with spikes going medieval on Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, that's another huge conflict of interest with Bloomberg, KT, is that he's buying all of these superdelegates already. I think versus Hillary, Bernie got like 0.2% of superdelegates, maybe actually 5 to 7% of them. But that won't be enough to carry him through if he doesn't hit the threshold mark. So if Bloomberg has spread out his money, which $60 billion, he spread out all these donations throughout the entire country to local Democratic parties, the heads of these Democratic parties and local organizations ultimately become your superdelegates. So these people that, you know, if you ever saw Kyle Kalinski's video on that, it's a great video. Check that out on Secular Talk. He explains different areas where Bloomberg dumped money to gain consent and to gain endorsements and stuff like that. That'll be big when it comes to a convention. Bloomberg will just pay his way through like he always had.
Of black women have been coming up to me a lot everywhere I've gone and said, is Bloomberg going to be okay? Bloomberg's the only one who can save us. And it's interesting because I've had a lot of...
Yeah, this is not believable at all. Are you kidding me? Is Bloomberg going to be okay? Jennifer Rubin, homegirl. All right. For those frightened of a Sanders presidency, the most likely outcome will be nothing. His inability to work with his own party, let alone the other side, will likely result in why can't I talk? I'm not even going to say it now. I just messed up. That is good news. You know, I know how to say that. I'm just not going to try now. I already gave up. Good job. Great job, Poopin. Everything she says is so annoying. But, like, I don't know if she understands this, but anything Obama got done, anything Bush got done, anything any president got done throughout time has been done through memos and executive orders. Like, throughout time, presidents found ways to do things without having to get approval from the different branches, checks and balances. And one of the ways they do that is through executive action, executive order. Like Bernie said, he would legalize marijuana with executive order. That's how they get stuff done because nothing gets done in our government. So in the end, Bernie Sanders just being president alone, he'll be able to do a lot for us. He might not be able to pass Medicare for all day one. He might not be able to get through free community college day one, or free public college and universities as well. It's not just community college day one. But what he can do with the executive power and with his vetoing power, just being on behalf of the people, will be huge. Will be huge versus Pete Buttigieg versus Joe Biden versus standard neoliberal hack. And she doesn't know much. Hope you keep up with these live shows through the rest of the primaries. I definitely will be on here a lot. This channel is growing a lot, and that's been super, super fun. I think in the past 50 days, I've gained 1,000 subscribers. It all started with when the whole World War III scare came up. I had a nice stream. A lot of people joined me for that, and that got me really motivated to keep on making videos. And here I am making more. So Bernie Sanders is still up, doubling second place. Insane. Insane. And apparently, Bernie Sanders penetrating the youth vote through Latino youth has spread up to the older people in society in general. Like, if young kids like Bernie Sanders, they tell their parents, like, okay, I believe in this guy. I want to fight for this guy. I think he really cares about us. A lot of parents will actually listen. So if any of you are like my age, 18 through 24, or even older than that even, but if you have parents, 18 through 50, whatever, if your parents are old, just tell them, you're passionate about this guy. This guy has a great record. Socialism, tell them what it actually means. There's a story I always use to explain what I mean by democratic socialism for people. And it's about the little town it was Georgia or Alabama. Jimmy Dore covered it, I think. It was about a small town, a really conservative Trump town. And they were far away from the rest of civilized society. They only had one grocery store. And that one grocery store found out it wasn't profitable to be in that town anymore. So it left. And that was a problem because the people in town were not going to drive 2 hours to go get their groceries. So they had two choices. Either they could, one, pay a company to come in, a private company with subsidies, and have them come in and gouge the prices, try to turn a profit, and give them low wages. Or they could run their own community-owned grocery store. And instead of paying an outside company just to come in and steal more money, they had the community-ran store. This very Trump town had no idea they were orchestrating socialism by saying profit motive doesn't make sense here. We're going to take control of it as people. They were able to keep everything neutral on the money side. They were able to give good wages. No profits leaked out. Everything stayed within the community. And if I find that article, that's a really good story to use. Because people love certain policies when you don't put a label on it. Like, if you describe socialism to people and don't say socialism, they might be like, you know what? That does make sense. And America, we come together and fight for a common cause. And it makes sense that if we can, cover everybody's healthcare insurance for less money than the system now, which leaves 80 million people uninsured, or whatever the number is. I know it's 12 million people that aren't insured, or whatever. It's somewhere in the ballpark. But you could pay less money to have everyone covered instead of paying more money to have a marginal number of people have good care. And why aren't we doing it? Drop the labels, change the country. Yeah, they're not willing to give control of the Democratic Party. A thank you to whoever just subscribed as well. 1.4 thousand subscribers. Very, very, very cool. There you go. Sheriff Pete's fundraising from small dollar donors. So Pete always says to Bernie, like, oh, my campaign is fueled by small dollar donors as well. So his share of fundraising from these donors here, you can see the different numbers. From January to March last year, 65%. And you can see the numbers keep going down. So he started off being majorly funded by small donors, 65%. Then as his presidential campaign moved on through the next couple months, it went down to 44%. Down on a couple months later to September, 45%, which is up from the last one. But that goes from 45% to 39% to 29%. So you can see that Pete Buttigieg started off with a campaign that 65% was funded by small donations. And over time, he became more corporate, became compromised, became less progressive, as he said he was. And now only 29% of his fundraising comes from small donors. Yeah, I want Bernie to win by 50% or more as well. That would be very cool. Just the fact that Bernie is going to get money, or he can just get money out of politics alone, but the fact that the presidency won't be ran by money alone should be a seller for very many libertarian-minded people. I know a lot of people who consider themselves libertarian that I have been able to convince to support or even consider Bernie because he is 70% libertarian. Every social issue lines up libertarian. And then you can make a case to them, although they might be crazy and think government isn't necessary. But anyway, you can make the case that Bernie Sanders is the best option because he's not corrupted. He's not corruptible. Like, people get mad at him because he's grumpy and yells, but that's why people actually love him. The media gets mad at him for that. We realize he's yelling because he is our voice. He's our anger through his voice, and he truly cares about it. And he's going to go into the office, and he's so stingy and old that he's going to make sure that no BS gets through. And, you know, maybe it takes somebody who would call themselves a socialist or a democratic socialist to be like that. But there's another topic that I see brought up a little bit and I worry about. And I've been to a Bernie Sanders event. It was very small in New Hampshire. I was sitting front row. And I'll be honest, the security was not very good. And when you look at what Bernie Sanders is fighting for, when you think of leaders throughout American history who have orchestrated a movement on this level, a movement that will not quit, that will not stop, that will not compromise until our goals are met, think of what happened to those individuals that have orchestrated a people's movement against the powers that be. It's a really dangerous world out there, and I think Bernie Sanders needs to take a lot more consideration into his security measures. And I don't want to be too worried about it and incite like fear about it, but it's true. He is a very high target at this point. He just needs to be very, very, very careful, and he's not. And I know it's a part of his brand to walk with the people and all of that stuff and walk in marches and stuff, but we're getting to the point where like these movements are bigger than life. They're bigger than any one human. Like Bernie Sanders is essentially 10 million people or whatever number of people. A self-proclaimed libertarian once told me that his church or something was pulling money to pay the healthcare cost of the others in the church. I was like, bruh. Exactly. Like, I tried to explain universal healthcare when I have, like, okay, say there's 6 people. I'm like, okay, put all your money in a circle. I'll give everyone $1. Put the dollars in a circle. All right, so this is our disaster relief fund. This is our insurance policy. So we're all putting money in, so in case if one of us gets sick, we could use that money that we're putting together. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, okay, so we're going to add one more person. They're going to be the insurance company. And they're going to hold our money for us, keep it safe, take 2 of our dollars, and then when we want help and we need help, they're going to tell us we can't have our money back. And then I ask people like, okay, what's the actual function of a private insurance company? And there is no function for private insurance. 0 function. It's like a bank, honestly. It's like a bank we put money in, but, you know, they just steal from us. They steal from the account. We add a bunch of money into an account. Like, everyone should just be together in that one savings account. Expand the risk pool. Lower prices, lower costs. What do you say to people who get into the medical industry to earn a good living? If the government takes over the healthcare industry, where do you find the people to fill all the vacancies? I don't think salaries of like doctors and nurses will be too affected. I actually think salaries for nurses on the low end go up under Medicare for All. Nurses are majority for it, but when you're talking about that, nothing's changing on the side of the doctor. It's changing on the side of who's paying. And the Medicare rate, I would have to review his bill to see where the Medicare, if anyone else knows what the Medicare rate is that he wants, because I know what it pays now compared to what private insurance pays doctors, but I'd have to review that more. And another part of being, well, government, they won't be directly government employees. That's what they have in the NHS. The government's just a single payer for the private doctors and different insurance, different healthcare companies. And I had a person at the Bernie Sanders event that I went to. It was the person who started the whole news feed, the news story about people who are going to lose their jobs due to Medicare for All. And I was at the event, and people were telling Bernie about their healthcare hardships and about like insulin and about like pre-existing conditions. And this guy stands up and he asks a question on, will I lose my job if Medicare for All happens? And Bernie said, okay, so you work in the healthcare industry. What is your job? And the guy said, all right, my job is to deny people coverage. And that's when you get into the whole argument like, okay, are we going to complain about houses being less likely to burn because we can't hire firefighters, or are we going to complain about a lower crime rate because we can't hire more policemen? Like, if that guy loses his job, and his job was to deny coverage, I'm happy he doesn't have a job anymore, because I think the human suffering isn't worth having someone work to deny coverage. That money shouldn't be leaking out. The money should be going to something that's actually fundamentally helping people, making someone a productive member of society. And I'm not an expert on single-payer healthcare by any means. Bernie Sanders, new reporting in, 27% in, 47% of the vote still. And this is the CCDs. Joe Biden at 22% in second place. Pete Buttigieg, not viable yet at 14%. Warren, not viable at all by any stretch at 9%. And as she said when she came out to her speech today in Washington, are you guys ready for big structural change? And then she said, thank you guys in Nevada for keeping me in the fight. Keeping me in the fight. A couple more delegates added. Pete Buttigieg is creeping closer to being viable. And this slow trickle of information bugs me out too. I hate it. Just like Iowa. I mean, Iowa was an extreme version of that. Yeah, a good argument to use. Oh, wait. So this is what happened this year for the Democratic primary. And this is what happened. Ooh, wait a second. So the similarities are really striking between Donald Trump's campaign against the Republicans and Bernie's campaign this year, and the way they're trying to deflect the media. They're trying to tear them apart. They're trying to control the will of the people. And you see here, Donald Trump in Nevada, 45% of the vote when it was all said and done. And right now, Bernie Sanders is at 46% of the vote. And the results are actually very similar number-wise. Really interesting. That'll probably change as time goes on, but it is interesting. Yeah, I don't want Buttigieg to be viable at all. Another part to having a Medicare for All system is you do need education to be cheaper and easier to access. Like, I know many people who were going to go to medical school to be doctors, but they just said, you know what? That's too much money, too much time. I'm just going to go and be a school teacher, be an elementary school teacher. And then that's another problem, because we have a bunch of people becoming teachers that don't actually want to teach kids. They want it to be doctors, but becoming a doctor would be too expensive. So there's a lot to take care of there, considering the supply and demand of doctors as well, which is very, very complicated stuff. And we have a long ways until.
Why you always lying? Oh my gosh, why you always lying? Why you always
That's good. Pete's always lying, baby.
Michael Bloomberg with kind of a
Yeah, I saw this one already. Manufacturer consent. Very true. Very, very true. So now we move on to South Carolina, and Bernie Sanders has been steadily closing in on Joe Biden in South Carolina. And the media is saying Joe Biden's very strong second-place finish, which, I mean, if he doubles his score, he might get to Bernie's percentage here. But they think this will propel Biden for South Carolina. But as this person says right here, even if Biden does win South Carolina, he might not have the resources to continue. A lot of resources went to Mayor Pete, went to that new, the new Elizabeth Warren super PAC that she was supposed to be denying. But Elizabeth Warren made a complete 180, pretending that the Sunrise Movement and Our Revolution PACs for Bernie Sanders were some type of crazy, dark operations. She said the males in the race have super PACs. Therefore, I'm going to reverse my position. And now Elizabeth Warren, on her behalf in South Carolina, maybe Nevada too, around $4 million of advertising dollars were spent for her from super PACs. Did you see the reporter on MSNBC where she almost cried? Who almost cried? Bernie's 3 for 3.
But I know y'all wanted that 808. You feel that BASS, baby. But I know y'all wanted that.
Okay. Mike Gravel dropped a huge truth bomb about Mayor Pete Buttigieg at the college. What did he say?
Can we say pizza rat?
Pizza rat.
Yeah, yeah, not pizza rat. Pete is a rat.
Pete is a rat.
Yeah.
Pizza rat. That's good. Pizza rat. If you know a Pete Buttigieg supporter, have them say pizza rat. They will love it. Finished too distant of a second in Nevada. So Bernie Sanders smears are going to be pumped up even more than before. And I don't know if the Bernie bro thing is working. In my experience, it isn't working. It's only being picked up by the former Clinton supporters who think, oh my goodness, Bernie supporters online are so mean. And by the way, did anyone see the Bloomberg ad or whatever where he blocked out the person saying he was gonna... Oh wait, okay, I want to see this. So Elizabeth Warren mocks Bloomberg's height.
I want to talk specifically for just a minute at the top about a threat that is coming our way. And it's a big threat, not a tall one, but a big one. Michael Bloomberg.
Hey, Elizabeth, that's very Trumpian of you. Oh, we got him. We got him, Trumpian. Whenever you make a joke in politics or you have attitude and conviction in politics, it's Trumpian. Terrible joke, by the way. Who cares? It's all petty BS. Working class people want to see working class issues being settled. I don't want to hear a pissing match between a billionaire and a millionaire, or a millionaire and a billionaire, or two billionaires who are both authoritarian, right-wing A-heads. Yeah, but anyway. This pissed me off when I saw this. It betrays everything I know about life. So he's saying here, can he make it any more obvious who he wants to face in the general election? Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Donald Trump tried to do things in a way that manipulated the Democrats into thinking that he wants to face Bernie so that the Democrats don't elect Bernie. I would not be surprised by any amount. Sanders coalition in Nevada disproves the Bernie bro narrative. Yes, thank you, people like Nina Turner, Breonna Joy Gray, these amazing, powerful women who are apparently Bernie bros. This annoys me, this pearl clutching. Does the senator understand that this divisive behavior is what's going to reelect Donald Trump? Come on. This is how you win. No one likes the establishment. If you like the establishment, then you're not going to be a swing voter. You're voting for your masters. But anyway, thank you to whoever just subscribed. By the way. We have a prediction about South Carolina in the chat. Rock Lee, I predict roughly Bernie 22%, Biden 17%, Steyer 13%, Bloomberg 11%, Pete 8%, Warren 7%, Amy 2% in South Carolina. Is Bloomberg running in South Carolina is the question. I don't think he is. So if you'd adjust your numbers to that, they know he's not running there. I think he's still going to get some of the vote just because. So Bloomberg, I would probably knock down at least, a couple points. Maybe bump Bernie up to 24%, Biden up to 22%, Steyer 15%, Pete 10%, Warren 0%. Warren 0%. But where's the terrible meme at? It was just wrong. He put a meme of someone saying something about Minecraft. They said, I will make you like Bernie no matter what. And it said in Minecraft. And they blocked out the in Minecraft. Bloomberg's memes are honestly the most pathetic things I've ever seen. All the memes are about tweeting, are about Donald Trump being bad at golfing, are about Donald Trump's steaks tasting bad, making fun of Donald Trump for not being a real billionaire, which is very good, and it's very, people laugh at that when they're watching MSNBC and watching Morning Joe, but the voters we need to get out to vote are not watching Morning Joe at 6 a.m. or whenever that comes on. They are not watching Sunday morning television. We need people out who are not going to come out and vote. And when you just attack Donald Trump about his freaking steaks or about his tweeting or about a bunch of this stuff that does not actually affect working class people, You keep doing that, all you're doing is suppressing the vote. It's a terrible tactic. I can't believe anyone thinks that works. Whoever Michael Bloomberg is spending this money on is a freaking it's highway robbery, dude. Because these are bad memes. What state do I live in? I live in Pennsylvania. So I come very, very, very late in the process, which sucks. But I do have, I'm in an area where I think I could help make a difference if it does come down to Sanders needing to surge. If Bernie needs those votes at the end to get that 50% mark, which he's going to have to do, I'm kind of excited because PA actually matters this year. But yeah, I'll be out there working my ass off. I'll be working my ass off for that. And thank you to whoever just subscribed as well. Thank you very much. Yeah, so MSNBC freaking out. CNN gave very even coverage today. Ever since Andrew Yang became a CNN commentator, they have been a lot better. And I'm actually not that disappointed with them today. But MSNBC is going complete Fox News conspiracy theory.
Electable. I think we look at people want electability. Well, that's not going to be Sanders. Seems to me a lot of people don't necessarily draw that same conclusion.
Well, you have to win contests to become electable. I mean, and Bernie has shown he's able to do that, even though Iowa was a little bit of an asterisk because it was a tie. But I wanted to talk a little bit about health care, and David Chalian alluded to this a little earlier, but the disconnect between we had this culinary union fight with Bernie Sanders last week, and then
because they wanted to protect their Cadillac plans, which would be done away with under a Medicare for all system.
But our reporter Scott Bixby is in Nevada, he's in Las Vegas, and he was just talking to workers there, people who are in the union but aren't necessarily leadership, and what they were telling him was, yes, love my health care plan, it's fantastic. What if my restaurant closes and I don't have health care anymore? Something like Bernie Sanders is talking about, I would be covered. So that disconnect, and that's why it's not necessarily that if you're in the culinary union, you're going to vote against Bernie Sanders, because it's also, not a lot of these jobs are not necessarily forever. And these folks know that, and healthcare is the most important thing to most people who are casting a ballot today.
Yeah.
I think when we look at Nevada, too, we talk a lot about it's going to be the first real introduction of Latino voters. We go to South Carolina, it's going to be the first real introduction of African-American voters, into this process. But I think that if you take a step back and you look at Nevada as a whole, it's really the first introduction of blue-collar voters in a very, very, very big way, because you're looking at service jobs that really dominate Las Vegas, and fairly well-paying service jobs as well. I mean, people go there to work. But at the same time, you're looking at an electorate out there that is looking at an American dream that, for most of them, is lost, okay? So they're looking back at Washington saying to themselves, you have forgotten about me. And you have Bernie Sanders on the other side saying, I'm going to burn down Washington. And at the same time, to Chris's point, because you stole my point, Chris, and I'll never, ever forgive you for that, is that I think one of the most important numbers coming out of this is that more than 6 in 10 Democrats want somebody who can beat Donald Trump. And right now, they think it's Bernie Sanders. And I think that all this talk that we have, and believe me, there's a lot of truth to it, that people will not back Bernie Sanders if he becomes the nominee.
This is a good one, too. So, in that last clip, they admitted, okay, they do lie about the unions. Bernie has union support, and he has the union support that matters. The actual people in the union, not the union heads who are corrupt and who are intertwined with a bunch of special interest and all of that. But he has the actual workers. So the media was like, what the heck happened? I thought the working class people hated Bernie. Like, come on. But right here, great little clip.
I have no idea what voters think about anything anymore.
I have no idea
what voters think about anything anymore.
That clip needs to be played.
What voters think about anything anymore.
Like, you got to listen to that, like, for your alarm clock. Like, that's a perfect alarm clock. It's so enlightening. It'll make your day just start off with a spring. They don't understand what voters want, apparently. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, they're definitely very connected with how it feels to be a regular American living in a town where there's like an opioid epidemic, or living in a town where the cost of living is going through the roof, or you're constantly, you're constantly worried about healthcare bills. They obviously understand what voters want. Like these people on TV getting paid $1 million to say a bunch of garbage. Bernie wants to burn down the Democratic Party. I mean, if we're going to burn it down, there's a lot of like, oh, that's a bad joke. I was gonna say there's a lot of natural gas to do it with because it's a bunch of people who are corrupt. That's a bad joke though. But yeah, we want to burn it down. We want to replace it with something that actually represents the people. We have 0 people parties. This poll is great. Show this to anybody. Oh, if you couldn't hear in that clip, she says she has no idea what voters think anymore. No idea what voters think anymore. The media is scrambling. They're super worried that they don't have control over us. But this AP poll shows that the Democratic voters see by far Bernie Sanders as the most favorable candidate. And the favorability that really matters is amongst all voters, where Bernie Sanders is the only candidate who is viewed as more favorable than Donald Trump. Take from that what you will, but I mean, it kind of defeats the whole argument that Bernie Sanders splits people up, that he's not a unifier, that people don't like his ideas, people don't like him. And it really makes you question where media is centered at. Because if you only pay attention to MSNBC and CNN, then your worldview is designed around the idea that you think is a fact, that Bernie Sanders is an angry old man who doesn't do anything but yell. But then you look at the actual numbers and you're like, holy crap. Like, maybe these media people don't know what they're talking about. And I think a lot of people are catching on to that. They've seen it over the past couple of years. And it's just great. So make sure you share this around. I think I retweeted that as well. But yeah, I'm really happy about this finish. Just seeing this monstrous number next to Joe Biden is so delicious. So delicious. So, I mean, I guess Warren performed pretty good. Take her number, multiply it by 5. I mean, she'll be close. If you multiply her number by 6, then she'll, be above Bernie. Joe Biden, you double his score. I mean, you're still below. Mayor Pete, Mr. Uniter-in-Chief, Mr. Wannabe Obama. Multiply his score by 3, and he might tie. Tom Steyer did pretty well, but he lost a lot of votes on the second or the final realignment or final alignment. At least in one site's metrics. So a question I asked on in a poll on my channel that I want to see some responses for is, do you consider Obama's ideology and the job Obama did in office closer to a Bernie Sanders, or do you see Obama's policies and how he acted in office closer to a Donald Trump? I saw a lot of points made that on like movement perspective, how he spoke, and probably more on some policies Obama's with Bernie. But then there's another side that looks at the increased drone strikes, the lack of regulation, where he said there would be on Wall Street, filling the cabinet with people who did political favors for you, things like that made it a little bit different. NK says closer to Trump. I really don't know, because it's a hard combination. You'd have to make different categories. I think he's closer to Obama, but I could understand a lot of arguments for saying closer to Trump, especially if you see it as empty promises. Because when you have a lot of expectations about somebody, high expectations, he expanded 2 wars to 7. Yeah, so on military, he's closer to Trump. 100%. But everybody's together on military. I can't remember a Democratic president, and I was only born in 2000. I can't remember a president in general that wasn't pro-war, and I've only lived through 3. But even before that, Bush, Reagan, Clinton, who else? Carter. Carter was more liberal, I guess. I don't know enough about that, but midway in between. You can't deny he was more progressive than the rest, but his neoliberal and hawkish policies pushed him farther away. Like Trump gave billionaires $1 trillion tax cut. Yeah, tax plan-wise, Obama's wasn't nearly as bad as Trump. It was closer to Bush's tax plan with a little bit of a higher number on the top end. But what Donald Trump did is effectively eliminate the tax that serves as the bottom that you could pay. So there was a limit at 20% before, where, you know, if Amazon got a bunch of lawyers, they couldn't get below this one number. They could do whatever they wanted to legally, find whatever deductions and loopholes they wanted, but Amazon could not pay lower than this 20% mark. It was like the minimum value tax or the minimum something tax. And what ended up happening is Donald Trump completely took this tax away. Even Reagan had this tax, and that's how Reagan closed up a lot of loopholes and kept the budget somewhat stable. But Donald Trump completely eliminated this bottom net tax that prevented people from paying too little. And when he eliminated that for corporations, that's how Amazon now pays $0 in federal taxes. So that's one big policy that Donald Trump is completely, that's my least favorite policy he has had for taxes. Trump is less of a hawk considering it was a Republican president. I think the only reason Trump didn't go harder on Iran is because he knew it wouldn't play well. He kind of started the whole initiative, and then when he saw the public feelings about it, he realized it wasn't going to play very well. Bernie may have said this quote again today, but this is a quote. You might not be able to see this on the screen, but I have cast some lonely votes, fought some lonely fights, mounted some lonely campaigns, but I do not feel lonely now. Beautiful, Bernie. Thank you for that piece of amazingness. By the way, do you like my hat? You like my Bernie hat? Bernie 2020? It doesn't fit me, so I don't wear it, but I'll wear it for these, videos. What the hell? Kyle, why are you posting this stuff? Okay, so this is actually some interesting numbers or facts. The Sanders win was emphatic. He prevailed among those with college degrees, those without it, union and non-union households, in every age group except over 65. He won more than half of Hispanics and even narrowly carried moderates and conservatives. Across the board, except the people who are super old, Bernie killed it. So yeah, good day. Great day for Bernie. Thank you to whoever just subscribed to my channel as well. If anyone is not yet subscribed, please consider doing so. Democrats are going to elect a 79-year-old man with a heart condition. He'll be 87 at the end of second term. We have regular discussions in this country about stripping driver's licenses from people at this age. But by all means, let's elect one to run the world's most powerful nation. Charlotte. Oh, poor Charlotte. I don't even care what happens to Bernie after he gets elected. I mean, obviously I do, but he just needs to get elected. I don't need him to run 2 terms, man. 1 term with a good VP. We know the facts. We just need Bernie to run this, movement. And, what's his face endorsed Bernie? What's his name? The famous old comedian that I did not know. Dick Van Dyke, is it? Is that his name? Yeah, he came out, he's 94, to endorse Bernie Sanders. And he said, old people, come on. I'm 94, and I am... I got all my marbles. Bernie is totally young enough to run for president. I mean, he's 20 years younger than me. Hey, man, all I'm saying is I work in the summer. 85-year-old man in the sun shoveling dirt. Don't tell me Bernie's too old. Have you seen his crossover and his jump shot and his pump fake? Don't tell me Bernie cannot dominate the presidential election. That man's a monster. I wish AOC could be his VP. Give me a good 1 term, Bernie. AOC, yeah, she has that race coming up against that one former CBS host, or NBC, was it? Corporate hack coming out to challenge and primary AOC.
Ideally, and each candidate wants to be the last person standing to absorb the non-Bernie energy. The problem for Bernie is that, he's unlikely to get an outright majority of delegates heading into the convention, which is going to set the stage for the superdelegates to emerge. And then you're looking at a contested convention, which is also the dream scenario for all of the other non-Bernie candidates, because they're going to go in there with delegates. The superdelegates, let's say, are not going to be favorably disposed towards Bernie, and then each of the remaining candidates will say, like, you know, I'm the pick. So that's the dream that's going to keep every other candidate in the race.
But I think what Andrew's trying to say is everybody needs to just drop out. Which is a little bit true. The reality is we've now had 3 contests in which none of the other moderate candidates have been able to consolidate enough support to even really get that close to Bernie. I mean, looking at Nevada, this is a real blowout that we're seeing here. And it's a problem for all of these other candidates because one or more of them need to figure out, probably more in the vicinity of probably 2 or 3.
I was going to say,
figure out who's going to be the one to step back.
Someone needs to pull an Andrew Yang. Get up there and be like, I've done the math. I'm not going to win.
No road forward.
How hard is that for a candidate to have a conversation with himself or herself and her staff and say, okay.
That's why you have to hire Andrew Yang to do the math for them.
It's not gonna happen. I think it's gonna get nasty. Well, you can answer that then.
Well, it's tough going in both directions, Gloria, because you know, we were talking about if you have a bad night and you get up in front of a crowd and be like, it was a great night. You know, I mean, like on some level, it does ring hollow. It's hard to continue beating that drum. So it's hard to drop out, but in some cases, it's hard to keep going.
All right, so one big thing about that contested convention argument is we know Bernie Sanders beats the Democratic candidates one by one in head-to-head matchups. So if everyone stayed in this entire race and kept Bernie from being able to be the decisive victor, then it could help the moderate cause more than hurting. They want people to drop out and consolidate, but in reality, what would be better is if they keep on splitting the vote, because 40% of Bernie's vote is with Biden. Or let me rephrase that. 40% of Biden's vote goes to Bernie, second choice. Around 25% of Pete's support goes to Bernie, second choice. Around 40% to 45% of Warren's support goes to Bernie, second choice. Around 40% of Tom Steyer's support goes to Bernie, second choice. So everyone going in, stealing delegates, keeping those prospective Bernie voters away from him this entire time could help at the convention when they could all come together and be a formidable matchup directly against him. And that's how they could steal democracy. They'll make the case, oh, Bernie was favored by Russia, and also Bernie was too polarizing. I mean, he wouldn't have beat the entire moderate candidate base, the big moderate candidate the jumbotron they put together. If they combine every moderate score, they could beat Bernie. That's not how elections work, and it's not how the numbers say things would play out. If it was like that, Bernie would still win. But them staying in it might be better than what the media thinks they should do with consolidation. Pete is 14.4. Please stay there. Yes, Pete, do not be eligible to get anything. But just remember, we have to be careful too. There's a certain mix here. There's certain people we want in. If I want someone in with Bernie and Bloomberg, I want it to be Pete versus Biden, because I know Pete has the least amount of crossover support with Bernie than any other candidate. Pete has no support with people of color, but he does get that white moderate vote that is old and boring and would go to Bloomberg. So there's a certain mixture we have to look for. I mean, we can't control it. And we might not even know what that mixture is yet. We won't know until after. Bernie would go in with more clout. If you don't pick me, you would fracture the party. They would fracture the party. And the media is talking about that a lot, which is good. The media needs to talk about that so people on the ground know what's up. The people that watch MSNBC every day when they get home from work need to know what's actually happening, or they're going to be smacked in the face with a big dose of Bernie reality. Big dose of reality. Super delegates for Hillary. Pete's weaker than Biden. Yeah. Clint Eastwood signals his support for Mike Bloomberg from Donald Trump. Great. What did Carville say? I did not see what Carville said today yet. This guy's a...
These other candidates have not sufficiently talked about him. It's obvious that he's never been vetted in the press. I've not seen the 4-part series in the New York Times or the Washington Post or NBC News or anything else. So we're in a whole new ballgame here, and this game could end a little after mid-March. And some of these candidates are going to have to make really hard decisions about who stays in and who gets out and where we go from here. So, Brian, I just think there's one big, huge, screaming story here tonight and that is there is a front runner in the 2020 Democratic presidential.
Bernie hasn't been vetted, guys. Oh no. What are they gonna find on him? No, Bernie hasn't been vetted. No way. No way. Wow. I would hate not being vetted. Wow, James Carville telling poor people how to vote. Oh wait, that's not a good picture of it. Let's look at his mansion. James Carville trying to give us a lecture. Look at this guy. In his mansion. Wow, this fancy boy. Poor people shouldn't have health care. Hey, I'm James Carville from LSU. I live in a fancy mansion, and that's how I know, from Bill Clinton's mouth. Poor people should not have health care because Bernie Sanders is a communist. Literally, like, come on, shut up. This boy's net worth is probably... Yeah, James Carville net worth. He's worth $10 million bucks. Like, shut up, man. Shut up, mate. Crystal Ball said on MSNBC, they were asking if the centrist hitting bottom is exactly what they need in order to consolidate and beat Bernie. Michael Bennett supporter James Carville has been brought in for his crack political analysis. Thank you, James. Thank you to whoever just subscribed to my channel as well. Somebody please deport this guy to the moon. Oh, no. Well, I mean, that's why we're making Space Force, so... We have a Space Force, so we don't have universal health care. Good meme. Great meme. Great meme. Yep. American exceptionalism. Beautiful. Oh, no. Wow. Bernie Sanders supporters are spreading communist propaganda. No. Wow. Bernie's going to make a big portion of his face over the map of the U.S. because he's an authoritarian Cuban. Crazy. Yeah, that looks like James Carville. Like 100%. That's why he wears the hat and the glasses. Without the hat and the glasses, he'd be looking like that. Like, I hate poor people. Like, come on, dude. We know you hate poor people. Just see, this is the energy we need. Never mind. Okay, we don't need this energy anymore. We don't. I lied. We do not need this energy. I mean, maybe we do. Okay, well, you know, about that. Did Pete attack Bernie again? I think I saw Pete's attack on Bernie because Pete's being a little boy. Pete Buttigieg. This is not an attack.
Help Trump, and they want to help Bernie Sanders. Why would they want Sanders to do well?
Well, I don't think the Russians have a political party in the U.S. They want chaos. And we saw that they got just that by intervening to help Donald Trump. And of course, there's no question that they're going to be doing that in this election cycle, too. And yet what we're seeing is this administration is doing nothing meaningful to demonstrate that they care about this or going to act to stop it. Look, all the more reason for us to make sure that we are hard targets for misinformation as voters, and all the more reason for us to ensure that we are putting forward a candidate who can defeat Donald Trump by a big enough margin that it's not even within interfering distance.
So Pete is spreading the Russian propaganda in fundraising emails. So he says Bernie Sanders is a divisive leader that will split and burn down the Democratic Party. Bernie Sanders is being put forth by the Russians. He says Bernie Sanders is being supported by 9 dark money groups. This is the game Pete is playing against Bernie Sanders. It's like when you call, like Bernie said, Pete has a lot of rich donors. It's like when you say to a kid, like, okay, your parent bought you everything. Your parents bought you your cars. Your parents bought you your friends. You know, you have a super nice life. You didn't earn any of that. And then the rich kid freaks out and starts insulting your face or something, or makes up stuff about you. I feel like that's the scenario we're in. This boy.
The presidency is not the only office that matters, and we have got to support those frontline races because we need them.
You know, I saw this already. I'm not watching it again. Let's see what E. Warren is posting, man. The Bernie bros are vicious. We need to kill all the Bernie bros. Yo, why is Pete's burner account is in chat. Tasty Flava. Tasty Flav. Tasta Flav. Good job, Pete/Bloomer. The anti-Bernie vote. They should run on the same exact ticket. Okay, so she's not attacking anybody today. I wouldn't attack anybody after you get like 1% of the vote either. So Warren finished in this process so far with a meager performance in Iowa. Decent. I mean, she didn't do terrible. But New Hampshire, she finished with what? 10% of the vote, 9% of the vote, 4th place. And now in Nevada, she's about to finish with around 9 to 10% of the vote. So, lots of counting ahead, but with 1 in 3 precincts reporting in Clark County, home to 75% of the state population, final results may not be much different than what we see right here. So that's a little bit of an update for that. I can listen. Yo, we're all Russian bots. I'm a Russian bot. I'm not even real. I'm a holographic man. I'm a hologram. Thank you to whoever just subscribed, by the way. Oh, boy. Who else is there out there? Yo, how's Tulsi doing, guys? Tulsi, from what I know, I don't know if anyone in here is a Tulsi supporter, but she got... Yo, Andrew Yang got 2 CCDs. Tulsi got 3. Deval Patrick got 1. Michael Bennett's balling out with 6 over here, doubling Tulsi. She's still campaigning across the country. And I don't know what's her main objective, but Tulsi is still going out there talking to people. And yes, Elizabeth Warren, in a new poll this week, in her home state of Massachusetts, is losing to Bernie Sanders in her home state. Like, that's embarrassing. Even Amy Klobuchar is beating Bernie in Minnesota by only 6 points. Like, the 2 female candidates in their own states are losing to Bernie Sanders. Or almost losing. So not very good. What program am I using to maintain your illusion of life? You know, I wish I had a funny joke, but I don't. So, sorry. Oh, boy. I'll tell you what. Fun day, fun day. But come on, dude. Can we ever get a process where we have all the votes in one day? Like, this took place on a Saturday. Like, come on. Should be nice, chill. No one's at work. Well, a lot of people are at work, actually, in Vegas, but... I'd vote for Bernie, third party. You're a Tulsi supporter. Yeah, Tulsi's still going around the country. She's still kicking. I don't know what her like main objective is because she isn't picking up like support, but maybe she's trying to plant seeds for a future run. I'm not sure. I know a lot of people want Tulsi to be VP for Bernie, but I wasn't really sure about that. But what Tulsi could be doing possibly right now with her like good support from Trump voters and her crossover appeal is going through the country, going through each like state and getting like little seeds planted of conservative support there. So maybe she'd be a good strategic VP at that point if she does build that like base or whatever. Wow. Data at the here you go. Data at the precinct level for 33 majority Latino precincts statewide shows Sanders winning 74% of final alignment votes in these 33 precincts compared to 18% for Biden. As more data is reported, we will release updated analysis. Crazy, dude, crazy. Absolutely nutso. Final alignment. In Iowa, on final alignment, Bernie actually lost a lot. So the first popular vote, Bernie killed it. But as people realigned and picked their second choice, the lead narrowed. And what we're seeing in Nevada is the complete opposite. Bernie Sanders is picking up a lot when things realign. And that's because Warren is very weak and Tom Steyer is very weak. So those voters are all going to Bernie. And Klobuchar Klobuchar is being spread to Biden and Buttigieg. So Bernie's getting a big kick for realignments. Yeah, that's why I said the other day it's risky with her favorabilities. But if she can bring over some type of crossover support, because she has this ability to get these people who are hardcore Trump supporters to like universal health care, which is weird to me. Like, I hear people say Tulsi's far right for the Democrats, and then I look at her policies, and I'm like, dude, she's libertarian left. But like Kyle Kalinske also said, labels don't mean anything. And I guess your policies don't either, because these Trump supporters will go vote for a basically, socialist by our standards, democratic socialist, social democrat, without flinching. Yeah, that's interesting. Like, they count Tulsi as conservative because she doesn't discount Trump supporters. She goes on Fox News and she's skeptical of the establishment, but she's not conservative at all when it comes to policy. Yeah, Tulsi is probably closest to Bernie. Tulsi's health care plan is basically Australia's universal plan, where you take our Medicare where it is now and expand it without moving the coverage to 100%. So everyone has that 80% Medicare coverage, but they have to buy a supplemental plan for the final 20%, and it becomes a two-tier system. So Tulsi's plan is literally just Bernie's with a two-tier system, which I know a lot of Bernie supporters were mad at her for that. But I don't hate that idea. Good night, Brad G. Thanks for joining for tonight's discussion about the amazing Nevada caucuses, which has a slow trickle of information. I predict as more data comes out that the numbers will grow a little bit smaller for Sanders. Warren should pick up a little bit. Pete should pick up a little bit. Biden should stay where he is. But I think Bernie will finish around 42%. If I had to guess, maybe lower. So if you think Tulsi doesn't think she'll be VP, why is Tulsi Gabbard making it a point to go throughout the country and talk in every single battleground state when she has no chance to win? Like, why do you think she's doing this? Is it for personal gain? Is it for because she loves the conversation? She loves spreading her message of anti-war? Is it because she's expecting something out of it? Like, I really have no idea what her main objective is here, because Andrew Yang said, okay, I don't have a chance to win, and I cannot keep on asking my supporters for donations if I don't have the correct math to win. So, yeah. Tulsi, why is she in? I don't know. Jennifer Rubin is a smart girl. So as long as your small donor base is diluted, you can keep on paying your diluted staff and continue diluting yourself. Why? Warren hitting Bloomberg, a lot of people compared it to Chris Christie when he attacked Rubio in 2016 and knocked him out without giving any gain to himself. Warren attacking Bloomberg hurt Bloomberg, but didn't give her any apparent gain, at least in the short run, as it looks. She's got the money and wants to share her message on Tulsi. Maitrade said Tulsi wants frequent flyer miles. Bernie's going to raise Obama numbers in donations, which is crazy. Bernie's enthusiasm is bigger than Obama's was. The only difference is there's even more of a media pushback. Obama got this pushback with the Obama boys, and even they floated the idea that Russia wanted him to win. Anybody who doesn't campaign as hawkish on foreign policy, I think they say is a tool of the Russians, of what I've seen so far.
Half miles. These, again, are people who work on the Strip within 2.5 miles of the Bellagio, largely people of color. Of those, the majority are Latino, and they are clearly, at least from eyeballing it, strongly in favor of Bernie Sanders, with Joe Biden coming in second.
That sigh was so bad, dude. She was so upset to say Bernie Sanders was doing good. Like,
Are clearly, at least from eyeballing it, strongly in favor of Bernie Sanders, with Joe Biden.
At least from eyeballing it, strongly in favor of Bernie Sanders. Communist, by the way. Bernie Sanders is an evil communist. Bill de Blasio went on a big rant against Pete Buttigieg. If you did not see that, here's de Blasio's little rant. So, Pete Buttigieg, you clearly don't understand the movement Bernie Sanders has built. It reflects the true values plus hope of working people in America. They simply want a country that puts working people first. Your critique tonight speaks for the American elite, not the majority. And hey, Pete Buttigieg, try not to be so smug when you just got your ass kicked. You know how we form a winning coalition to beat Trump? With a true multi-race coalition of working Americans. Something Bernie Sanders has proven he can do. Plus, you haven't. Dude, show some humility. Listen to what Joyanne Reid just said about a Republican consultant privately admitting to her what it would be like to take on Bernie Sanders. All things considered, I'd rather not run against the movement. 2016 taught us we can only win by moving people, plus rejecting the elites. Purveyors of conventional wisdom are telling us tonight that Bernie Sanders can't be elected president because he is different. Just like they said about Donald Trump, just like they said about Barack Obama. The truth is, you can't be elected in America today unless you're different. That's some good stuff right there. You don't want to run against the movement. Ronald Reagan, after his first term, ran against Walter Mondale, who was VP for Jimmy Carter. Very boring guy. Very boring. I think he lost 49 states to Reagan. George Bush, after first term, ran against very boring John Kerry, the very safe establishment pick. George Bush somehow beat him. You don't beat incumbents that have good economies by running to the center and being boring and not fighting for people and fighting for the status quo. You don't do that. It doesn't work. Chris Matthews will vote for Trump. Doesn't like wealth tax. Truth. Thank you to whoever subscribed as well. Just subscribed. Wow, that's crazy. 1,400 subs. I never even thought. Pretty dope. I'll probably shut this stream down at midnight then. Mondale got stomped. Bill de Blasio is good for Bernie because he's another attack dog. He's not afraid to say what's on his mind, say things that the working class will like. Conversely, I mean, you have AOC who does the opposite. Lately, AOC has been a little weird with her like tactic of discussion for like Medicare for all and all that stuff. She came out and said they might compromise for a public option if they have to. And I think it's a result of the race she is currently running. Personally, a lot of Bernie people critiqued her. A lot of Bernie supporters critiqued AOC. But I think her race getting reelected is taking over. So how she's talking about things right now isn't just what she thinks will help Bernie win, but it's for her too. And her endorsement of Bernie was that as well. Like, it's a mutual relationship there. Bernie got her big boost after the heart attack, and then AOC got a huge donor base, and Bernie's super popular and well-liked. So her endorsing Bernie was the very smart move for, her re-election campaign 2020. But Bill de Blasio is definitely a good person to have. New mayor of New York cleaning up after Bill de Blasio. Why did I say that twice? Bill de Blasio cleaning up after Mini Mike Bloomberg. Boy. Everyone thinks Bernie can't win. I wonder why. Because the media is manipulating them. The media has such powerful effect over people. Very powerful effect over people. Yeah, I think we need everyone. I think we need fighters, people who are fighting for the working class in general, bringing everyone out from every background, especially for South Carolina, for Florida, for California, for Texas. These are voters that aren't spoken to. Like one time, in discussing the election with Mitt Romney, a lot of people were saying like, okay, go for the white vote only because those are the largest blocks. You would have to get 20 more points for Hispanics in order to equal 1 more point for the white vote. So don't go for the Hispanic vote because it doesn't matter as much. But Bernie's reaching out to those people. He's getting on the ground, and he's bringing the fury that those people are familiar with and are comfortable with. 4 more minutes. Thank you guys for joining me for another late night talk. If you are not yet subscribed, please consider doing so. Maybe some new videos tomorrow night. I have some schoolwork to get done because I am in college, so I'll tell you how that goes. And what else do we have this week? We have a debate on Tuesday, I think. Going live after that debate for sure. What else? We have a town hall Monday, town hall Monday, debate Tuesday, I think. I don't think I'll do anything about the town hall unless if someone says something different or controversial. Yeah, media. In the middle of the MSNBC debate, I got a anti-Medicare for all ad after Bernie Sanders just got done defending it. If the media from the left would treat Bernie fairly, he would be doing better even in general election matchups versus Trump. That's what people underestimate as well. Both sides are against him 100% in the media. If he even had half, if he had CNN, MSNBC saying polite things about him, talking about the facts, and pushing for it, it'd be, it'll get so much easier. Things will loosen up so much. We could focus on the main goal of beating Donald Trump and really reforming our democracy. Why is Warren using Nevada as an example to keep going with? I don't know. She's in it to steal votes from Bernie and get delegates, but she's not even getting delegates here. And if you look at how this rounds out, with 3 people viable, only about 15% of the vote is left off the table. So say the percentages stayed here, Bernie would get half the state delegates with these numbers, or half the delegates for the convention, and then Biden and Pete would split the rest. So Warren is not picking up delegates. It seems like she's just in this to make sure Bernie Sanders' ceiling doesn't rise too much. It really does seem like that. But yeah, Bernie won today. Bernie's a winner. Bernie's a winner. And, all right. I guess I'm logging off for tonight. Thank you for joining me. Please consider subscribing and all that. And I'll see you again someday.